Hi friends, this is Sarvajan here. Welcome to my networking channel. Hope all are doing good and safe. Today I'm going to show OSPF non-broadcast over a frame relay network. So example for a non-broadcast network is example is a frame relay. So in this, since it is a non-broadcast, I have to manually configure the neighbor relationship. I have to specify the neighbor relationship. So this is a hub and these are the two branch office router. These are the two spoke routers. So these two routers I have to configure this as a neighbor relationship. So R1 I have to configure the establish separate neighbor relationship with R2 and R3 since it is a broadcast network, and also you have to elect the DR and the BDR, right? So this is the configuration. So I configure the frame relay switch and I configure the PVC 102, 201, 103 and 301, right? So each and every PVC there is a separate virtual circuit. There is a separate virtual circuit and this is a separate virtual circuit. From R1 to R2 I configured 102 and R2 to R1 201. Similarly R1 to R3 is 103 and R3 to R1 is 301. So DLC is locally significant. So you have to map DLC to the IP address. So this mapping is done by frame relay inverse ERP. So by default it is enabled. So that will map the DLCA to IP address for the communication over the frame relay network, right? So this DLC assigning, see this virtual circuit, the DLC has been assigned, right? So that assignment has been done by LMI, that is a local management interface. So these are the key points you have to remember. So now let us go to the individual router and let us configure the frame relay. After that, we'll enable the OSPF routing protocol. So let us go to configuration mode and interface serial 2 by 0, right? This is 2 by 0. So go to serial 2 by 0. And now let us do encapsulate frame relay. That means I'm enabling the frame relay. This is a non-broadcast over a frame relay network and doing encapsulation frame relay. Then I have to specify the IP OSPF network. I have to specify the network command. IP OSPF network is non-broadcast, right? So these are the two things I need to enable. The same thing I have to configure on R2 and R3. So all should support the same network and the frame relay. So go to R2 and go to the configuration mode interface. This is serial 2 by 1, right? Serial 2 by 1 IP OSPF network is non-broadcast, and then encapsulation frame relay, right? We have configured it. Similar way, let us go to R3 and go to the configuration mode interface serial 2 by 2 encapsulation frame relay, and the IP OSPF network is non-broadcast. I hope you are following this. So you configure this, and one more thing I told, we have to manually specify the neighbors. So hub office has two branch routers, right? So both these branch routers I have to configure the neighbor. How to do that? Go to R1, that is a main office router or a hub router. Go to router. So go to router OSPF 100. So now let us enable the network 192.168.1.0 followed by 0.0.255 followed by area 0. Then let us specify the neighbor. It has two neighbors, right? 1.2 and 1.3. So 192.168.1.2 and 1.3. So these are the two neighbors I have configured. So R1 has two neighbors. One is a R2 and R3. Similar way, go to R2 and let us enable the routing protocol. So router OSPF 100 and network 192.168.1.0 followed by 0.0.255 and followed by area 0. And similar way, go to R3 and enable the routing protocol. So router OSPF 100 and the network is 192.168.1.0, then wildcard mask followed by area 0, right? So we are done with the configuration. And also one more thing, both this R2 and R3, this is a neighboring router I have to configure as a DR other. So let us check the configuration. Show run interface for serial 2 by 1, right? So this one I have to configure as a priority 0. So as I already told, this will be always selected as a DR other. So if you want to make this as a DR other router, I have to configure with the lowest priority, that is priority 0. Similarly, I have to go to R3 and I have to do this. Show run interface serial 2 by 2. So this will be elected as a IP DR other router. Why means that is the reason then R2 and R3 will have a complete neighbor relationship with the main office router. For that we are configuring this R2 and R3 as a DR other, and this R1 we elected as a DR. So this is the case in the case of DR and BDR, I have to always configure the neighboring router as a DR other router. So now let us check the neighbor relationship. Show IP OSPF neighbor. So it is trying to attempt, right? Down in it, still has not established. So let us go to R3, show IP OSPF neighbor. So it's still is trying to, yeah, still now it has established, right? It is now established, and it has established a full neighbor relationship with the DR other router, that is R2 and R3. Similarly, go to R2 and check show IP OSPF neighbor. So it will show the DR, that is the main office router, and go to R3. So always keep it in mind, R2 and R3 will always establish a neighbor relationship with R1. So to prevent the neighbor relationship between R2 and R3 spoke routers, I am configuring this as a DR other router. Go to R3, show IP OSPF neighbor. So this is also established. If you want to check the network type, go to show IP OSPF interface serial 2 by 0. So this will show the interface type. Network type is non-broadcast, and the prior hello is 30 timer and dead interval is 120, and the default priority is 1. It will show all the neighbors. We have configured the two neighbors. It is showing the manual neighbors. Since it is a broadcast network, I have configured the two individual neighbor relationship, right? So now what is it? We can check the PVC status. Show frame relay. PVC will show the virtual circuit status. It should be active. So it has two PVC, right? 102 is active and 103 is active. Similar way, we can check the map statement. So for DLCA to IP, this is a mapping statement. DLC is 102, which is mapped to 1.2, and similarly 103 is mapped to 1.3. So this is defined by inverse ERP, frame relay inverse ERP, right? So I'll also check in R2, show frame relay PVC. So PVC is active. So this is an example of OSPF non-broadcast over a frame relay network. So the main thing you have to understand is example is frame relay. We have to elect DR and BDR, and the neighboring router you have to configure as a DR other router to establish a neighbor relationship with main office router. So I don't want communication between R2 and R3. So in that reason I am configuring R2 and R3 as a DR other router. And since it is a non-broadcast network, manually I have to configure the neighbor relationship. I hope you understood. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe me for more videos. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.